The Galactic Council's misjudgment. The vast chamber of the Zarkonian Galactic Council hummed with anticipation. Holographic displays flickered in the air, showcasing star systems, planetary data, and military formations. The council members, each representing a different sector of the Zarkonian Empire, sat in tiered rows, their iridescent scales shimmering under the ambient light. At the center of the chamber stood High Admiral Excelfor, his imposing figure drawing all eyes. His voice, deep and resonant, filled the room as he gestured towards a holographic representation of a blue-green planet. Esteemed members of the Council, I present to you our next conquest, Earth, a planet rich in resources, teeming with life, and populated by a species known as humans. Our initial scans indicate primitive technology and limited defenses. This world will make an excellent addition to our ever-expanding empire. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. The Zarkonians had conquered countless worlds across the galaxy, their superior technology and strategic prowess making them an unstoppable force. Earth seemed like just another easy target. Councillor Vexera, her emerald scales glinting, leaned forward. What of the inhabitants, High Admiral? Do they pose any threat? Zelfor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Hardly. Their most advanced weapons are crude projectile launchers and primitive nuclear devices. They have yet to achieve interstellar travel. By our standards, they are barely out of their Stone Age. The council members chittered with laughter, already envisioning the spoils of their impending victory. But their mirth was interrupted by a gruff voice from the back of the chamber. You underestimate them at your peril. All heads turned to see an aged Zarkonian making his way down the central aisle. His scales were dull and scarred, and he walked with a noticeable limp. Despite his worn appearance, the council members fell silent, recognizing the veteran before them. High Admiral Xelfor's eyes narrowed. Commander Zalvex, we did not expect you to attend this session. Zalvex reached the center of the chamber, his gaze fixed on the holographic Earth. I couldn't stay away, not when I heard you were planning to invade this world. He turned to face the council, his voice carrying the weight of experience. I led a scouting mission to Earth 50 cycles ago. We thought, as you did, that it would be an easy conquest. We were wrong. A ripple of unease passed through the council. Zelfor, however, remained skeptical. Surely you exaggerate, Commander. What could these primitives possibly do against our might? Zalvex's scarred mandibles clicked softly. It's not just about their technology, Admiral. It's about their nature, their planet, their sheer tenacity. He gestured to his scared body. These are not the marks of glorious battles against worthy foes. These are the scars I bear from a single mission to Earth. The holographic display shifted, showing images of Earth's varied environments, from scorching deserts to frozen tundras, from dense jungles to stark mountain ranges. Earth is not just a planet, Zalvex continued. It's a death world. Every biome is designed to kill. The humans haven't just survived there. They've thrived. They've conquered every corner of their world, adapting to conditions that would break lesser species. He brought up images of Earth's wildlife. Great predators with razor-sharp teeth, tiny insects carrying deadly diseases, plants with poisonous defenses. And the humans? They've learned from every challenge their world has thrown at them. They're resourceful, adaptable, and above all, relentless. Councillor Vexera leaned forward, intrigued. But surely, Commander, our technological superiority means nothing, Zalvex interrupted. We thought the same. We had plasma weapons, energy shields, and anti-gravity propulsion. You know what they had? Projectile weapons that could penetrate our shields. Primitive but effective explosives that could down our ships, and understanding of their environment that we couldn't match. He turned back to the holographic Earth, his voice soft but filled with a hint of admiration and fear. But it's not just their weapons or their planet that makes them dangerous. It's their spirit. Humans don't know when they're beaten. They'll fight with broken bones. They'll strategize while starving. They'll sacrifice themselves without hesitation to protect their kin or their ideals. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Even High Admiral Xelthor seemed taken aback by the intensity of Zalvex's words. "I lost my entire squad on that scouting mission," Zalvex continued. "Not to their militaries, but to civilians. Farmers, teachers, children, they all became warriors the moment we touched down. We thought we were the apex predators, but on Earth, everything is a predator. And humans are the apex of them all." He faced the council once more, his eyes blazing with the memories of his past mission. "If you proceed with this invasion, you won't be fighting a war. You'll be stepping into a meat grinder. Earth isn't just a planet. It's a forge, and humans are the steel it has produced. They are hardened by their world, tempered by constant challenges, and honed by their own relentless drive to survive and conquer." High Admiral Xelthor, visibly shaken but unwilling to back down, stepped forward. "Your concerns are noted, Commander. But surely with our full military might." Zalvex cut him off with a harsh laugh. "Full military might? Admiral, you're not listening. It won't be enough. Not against them. Not against Earth." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. "I've seen worlds fall to our empire. I've conquered civilizations that had technology far beyond what humans possess. But I've never encountered a species like humans, and I've never seen a world like Earth. If you go through with this invasion, you won't just be risking defeat. You'll be risking the very future of our empire." As Zalvex's words hung in the air, the council chamber erupted into chaos. Arguments broke out among the members, some dismissing the commander's warnings as the ramblings of a broken soldier, others urging caution. In the midst of the uproar, Zalvex stood silently, his gaze fixed on the slowly rotating hologram of Earth. He knew his words would likely go unheeded. The Zarkonian Empire, in its arrogance, would proceed with the invasion. And as he watched the holographic clouds swirl across the blue planet, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity, not for the humans, but for his own people. For he knew that the moment the Zarkonian fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, they would learn the hard way why humans called their home a pale blue dot. It wasn't because of its appearance from space. It was a warning, a declaration that this small, unassuming world housed the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The invasion of Earth was about to begin, and with it, the Zarkonian Empire's greatest challenge yet. First contact and unexpected resistance. The Zarkonian invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace, its massive ships casting long shadows across Earth's moon. Despite Commander Zalvex's warnings, High Admiral Xelthor had convinced the Galactic Council to proceed with the conquest. As the fleet approached the blue planet, confidence radiated through the Zarkonian ranks. On the bridge of the flagship, Xelthor gazed at the approaching planet. "Prepare the first wave," he commanded. "Let's show these primitives the might of the Zarkonian Empire." Thousands of dropships detached from the main fleet, descending towards Earth's major cities. The Zarkonians expected minimal resistance, planning to establish footholds in strategic locations before the humans could mount any significant defense. But as the dropships entered Earth's atmosphere, the unexpected happened. A barrage of missiles streaked upwards, their primitive propulsion systems belying their effectiveness. Dozens of dropships erupted in flames, scattering debris across the sky. On the flagship's bridge, alarms blared. "Impossible," Xelthor hissed. "How did they detect us? Where did these weapons come from?" As the remaining dropships continued their descent, they encountered more surprises. Electromagnetic pulses disabled their advanced systems, forcing many to crash. Those that made it to the ground found themselves in hostile territory, facing not just military forces, but armed civilians who fought with a ferocity that shocked the alien invaders. In New York, a Zarkonian battalion found itself pinned down in Central Park. Captain Drelzar, leading the ground forces, couldn't believe what he was seeing. Humans, using what appeared to be crude projectile weapons and improvised explosives, were effectively neutralizing his troops' energy shields and armor. "Fall back!" Drelzar shouted, watching in horror as another of his soldiers fell to a barrage of bullets. "Regroup and call for air support." But air support never came. The Zarkonian fighters, designed for space combat, struggled in Earth's atmosphere. Human jet fighters, though technologically inferior, proved more maneuverable than the planet's thick air and unpredictable weather patterns. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Commander Ixel found her forces battling not just soldiers, but the very environment itself. A sudden snowstorm had blinded their sensors, and the cold was playing havoc with their equipment. "This is madness," Ixel muttered, watching her troops shiver in their supposedly all-environment suits. How do these humans function in such conditions? In the rainforests of Brazil, another Zarkonian unit was facing a different kind of hell. The dense foliage interfered with their communications, and the humid heat was causing their equipment to malfunction. Worst of all, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Sergeant Vexlor jumped at every sound, his nerves frayed. "There's something out there," he warned his squad. But before they could respond, silent figures emerged from the undergrowth. Indigenous warriors, their bodies painted to blend with the forest, attacked with blow darts and spears that somehow pierced the aliens' high-tech armor. Back on the flagship, High Admiral Xelthor was receiving reports of similar scenarios playing out across the globe. In the deserts of Africa, Zarkonian troops were succumbing to heat and dehydration. In the mountains of Afghanistan, guerrilla fighters were using the terrain to ambush alien patrols. Even in the oceans, Zarkonian submarines were being outmaneuvered by human naval forces more accustomed to Earth's complex undersea topography. "This isn't possible," Xelthor muttered, his earlier confidence evaporating. "They're primitives. How are they doing this?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A young analyst, Zira, spoke up hesitantly. "Sir, I've been analyzing their communications. It seems they were expecting us." Xelthor turned to her, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Explain." Zira brought up a holographic display of intercepted human transmissions. They'd been preparing for this, for decades. They call it science fiction. They've imagined countless scenarios of alien invasions. They'd been strategizing, hypothesizing, and planning for this very moment. The implications hit Xelthor like a physical blow. These humans hadn't just been surviving on their Deathworld. They'd been actively preparing for threats from beyond the stars. As if to underscore this point, a new alert sounded. "Sir," a technician called out, "we're detecting energy signatures from the moon." The view screen shifted, showing the lunar surface. There, previously hidden by the moon's natural features, human bases were powering up. Massive cannons, cobbled together from a mix of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien tech from past crashed ships, were taking aim at the Zarkonian fleet. Xelthor watched in disbelief as the first salvo launched from the moon, streaking towards his ships. "All vessels, evasive maneuvers," he shouted, but it was too late. The lunar cannons, firing projectiles at incredible speeds, tore through several Zarkonian ships. As chaos erupted on the bridge, Xelthor found himself remembering Commander Zalvex's words. The old veteran had tried to warn them, but they hadn't listened. Now, barely hours into what was supposed to be an easy conquest, the mighty Zarkonian Empire found itself on the defensive. In cities, jungles, deserts, and even in orbit, humans were proving to be far more than the primitives the Zarkonians had expected. They were resourceful, adaptable, and above all, prepared. As Xelthor watched another of his ships succumb to the lunar bombardment, a chilling realization set in. This wasn't going to be a swift conquest. It wasn't going to be a conquest at all. The Zarkonians had stumbled into a war unlike any they had ever faced, against an enemy they had gravely underestimated. And as reports of more human counterattacks flooded in, Xelthor couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of their troubles on this unassuming blue planet called Earth. The true nature of Earth revealed. As the Zarkonian invasion faltered, High Admiral Xelthor found himself in an unprecedented situation. For the first time in the Empire's history, they were on the defensive. The bridge of his flagship had become a chaos of alarms and frantic reports from ground teams. "Sir," a young officer named Cax reported, her scales pale with stress, "we've lost contact with the Australian contingent." Xelthor's mandibles clicked in frustration. The entire contingent? How? Cax brought up a holographic display of the Australian outback. "We're not sure, sir. Their last transmission mentioned something about everything trying to kill them." As if on cue, another report came in, this time from South America. A Zarkonian scout, his voice trembling, described an encounter with a massive serpent that had crushed one of their armored vehicles, like it was made of paper. Xelthor felt a creeping dread. Commander Zalvex's warnings echoed in his mind. Earth is a death world. Meanwhile, on the ground, Zarkonian soldiers were learning firsthand just how apt that description was. In the Amazon rainforest, Captain Yexera led her team through the dense undergrowth, every sense on high alert. The humidity was playing havoc with their equipment, and the cacophony of alien wildlife had them all on edge. Suddenly, one of her soldiers let out a blood-curdling scream. Yexera spun around to see him clawing at his armor, which seemed to be moving. "Ants!" another soldier cried out. Millions of them. Yexera watched in horror as the tiny insects swarmed over her comrade, finding every crack and seam in his supposedly impenetrable armor. Within minutes, he was on the ground, motionless. "Fall back," she ordered, her voice shaking. But as they retreated, they found themselves faced with new horrors. Poisonous frogs whose mere touch sent soldiers into convulsions, parasitic worms that somehow breached their environmental suits, and carnivorous plants that seemed to reach out hungrily as they passed. Similar scenes were playing out across the globe. In Africa, a Zarkonian platoon found itself surrounded by a herd of massive gray beasts with foot-long tusks. Elephants, their xenobiologist had called them, moments before one of the creatures impaled their transport vehicle. In the oceans, Zarkonian submarines were being stalked by enormous predators that their sensors couldn't seem to track properly. Reports came in of ships being breached by creatures with teeth as long as a Zarkonian arm. But it wasn't just the wildlife that was proving to be a challenge. Earth itself seemed to be fighting back against the invaders. In Iceland, a Zarkonian base established near what they thought was a dormant mountain suddenly found itself in the path of a volcanic eruption. The aliens, unused to such geological instability, were caught completely off guard. In the Midwest of the United States, a Zarkonian air squadron found itself in the heart of a tornado, their advanced ships tossed about like leaves in the wind. And in Japan, just as the aliens thought they had secured a foothold, the ground itself betrayed them. An earthquake, followed by a massive tsunami, wiped out their coastal installations in a matter of minutes. Back on the flagship, Xelthor was struggling to make sense of it all. How could one planet harbor so many threats? And how had the humans not only survived but thrived in such an environment? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Zilvax, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, requested an audience with the High Admiral. "Sir," Zilvax began, his voice filled with a mix of fear and awe, "I've been analyzing the data from our ground teams, and I've come to a startling conclusion. Earth isn't just a death world. It's the death world." Xelthor's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Zilvax brought up a series of holographic displays, showing Earth's various biomes and the creatures that inhabited them. Every environment on this planet is extreme by our standards. The temperature ranges, the atmospheric conditions, the geological instability. It's all far beyond what we consider habitable. And yet life here hasn't just survived. It's flourished in ways we can barely comprehend. He zoomed in on images of various Earth creatures. These species have evolved over millions of years to become perfect killing machines, And at the top of this food chain, humans. The display shifted to show human physiology. They're persistence predators, sir. They can regulate their body temperature through sweating, allowing them to outlast almost any prey. They can adapt to virtually any environment on their planet. And their endurance, it's unmatched in our experience. Xelthor felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying? Zilvax nodded grimly. Humans are the apex predators of a world full of apex predators. They've survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, meteor impacts. They've outlasted countless other species that evolved alongside them. And now, they're turning all of that evolutionary history, all of that hardwired survival instinct, against us. As if to punctuate the doctor's words, another report came in. This time from a Zarkonian unit in Siberia. The cold, the soldier gasped, his transmission breaking up. It's too much. Our equipment is failing. But the humans, they're still coming. How? How are they surviving this? The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Xelthor turned back to Dr. Zilvax. What are you suggesting, Doctor? That we cannot win this war? Zilvax's expression was solemn. Sir, I'm suggesting that we may have stumbled into a fight we were never prepared for. The humans, they're not just fighting us. They're fighting with their planet. Every poison, every predator, every extreme condition. They're all weapons in humanity's arsenal. And they've had millions of years to perfect their use. As the weight of this realization settled over the bridge, Xelthor found himself facing a decision he never thought he'd have to make. The Zarkonian Empire, in all its history of conquest, had never retreated. But as he looked at the holographic display of Earth, teeming with life that seemed determined to expel the alien invaders, he wondered if they had finally met their match. The battle for Earth was far from over, but one thing was becoming increasingly clear. This small blue planet, dismissed as primitive and easy prey, was proving to be the greatest challenge the Zarkonian Empire had ever faced. And humanity, forged in the crucible of this Deathworld, was emerging as a force that could shake the very foundations of galactic order. Turning the tide. As the Zarkonian invasion force struggled against Earth's myriad challenges, humanity's response was entering a new phase. The initial shock of alien contact had given way to a grim determination, and the adaptability that had allowed humans to thrive on their Deathworld was now being turned towards a singular purpose: repelling the invaders. In a fortified bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Samantha Chen, Earth's leading genotechnologist, stood before a group of international military leaders and scientists. Behind her, a holographic display showed the schematics of a downed Zarkonian ship. Gentlemen, ladies, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. What you're looking at is our ticket to victory. General Williams, a grizzled veteran of countless Earth conflicts, leaned forward. You've cracked their tech. Samantha nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. Not just cracked it, sir. We're improving on it. She zoomed in on a particular section of the alien craft. Their energy shields are impressive, but they have a fatal flaw. They're designed to deflect energy weapons, something we don't primarily use. Our primitive projectile weapons. They pass right through. A murmur of excitement passed through the room. Samantha continued, but here's where it gets interesting. We've managed to reverse engineer their shield technology and modify it. Our version. It stops both energy and physical projectiles. The implications weren't lost on anyone in the room. With this technology, human forces would have protection against both Zarkonian weapons and their own. But Samantha wasn't done. There's more. They're faster than light drives. We've figured out how they work, and we found a way to use them to create localized disruptions in space-time. She pulled up another diagram, this one showing a swirling vortex. Imagine opening a micro-wormhole right in front of an incoming Zarkonian missile, redirecting it back at their own ships. The room erupted in excited chatter. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a palpable sense of hope. General Williams stood up, his face set with determination. "Dr. Chen, how quickly can we implement these technologies?" Samantha's reply was instant. "We've already begun, sir. Production facilities around the world are being retooled as we speak. Within days, we'll be able to outfit our forces with these new defenses. Within weeks, we'll have our own fleet of hybrid Earth Zarkonian ships ready for launch." As the meeting adjourned, plans were set in motion across the globe. Humanity, with its newfound technological edge, was preparing to take the fight to the stars. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, High Admiral Xelfor was facing a crisis. His invasion force, once thought invincible, was in disarray. Reports of defeats on the ground were compounded by a new, terrifying development. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, panic evident in his voice, "we're detecting energy signatures from Earth's surface. They're using our own technology against us." Xelfor watched in disbelief as a squadron of Earth fighters rose from the planet's atmosphere. These weren't the primitive jets they had faced earlier. These ships moved with the same grace as Zarkonian craft, but they were clearly of human design. A perfect fusion of Earth ingenuity and alien technology. As the human ships engaged the Zarkonian fleet, it quickly became apparent that the tables had turned. The Earth vessels seemed to anticipate every move, every tactic that the Zarkonians had perfected over centuries of galactic conquest. On the ground, the story was much the same. Zarkonian ground forces, already struggling with Earth's hostile environments, now found themselves outmatched by human soldiers wielding hybrid weapons and protected by shields that their own weapons couldn't penetrate. In the Amazon, Captain Yexera watched in awe as a human squad, clad in powered armor that seemed to adapt to the jungle environment, effortlessly neutralized a Zarkonian ambush. Their weapons fired projectiles that phased through Zarkonian shields before becoming solid again, bypassing defenses that had once seemed impenetrable. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the Arctic, Zarkonian troops accustomed to the advantage of their all-environment suits found themselves outmaneuvered by humans whose new armor allowed them to practically become one with the icy landscape. In the oceans, human submarines, now equipped with Zarkonian-derived stealth technology, struck with impunity against alien vessels that had once ruled the seas. But perhaps most shocking was the lunar counterattack. The bases on the moon, which had been such a surprise to the Zarkonians initially, now launched a fleet of ships that combined the best of human and Zarkonian technology. These vessels, piloted by humans who had trained in lunar gravity and were accustomed to the harsh realities of space, tore through the alien fleet with ruthless efficiency. Back on his flagship, Xelfor watched as his invasion force crumbled. The humans, it seemed, had not just adapted to Zarkonian technology. They had mastered it, improved upon it, and turned it against its creators. As alarms blared and reports of more defeats flooded in, Xelfor was faced with a decision he never thought he'd have to make. The mighty Zarkonian Empire, which had conquered countless worlds across the galaxy, was being beaten back by a species they had dismissed as primitive just weeks ago. With a heavy heart, Xelfor gave the order he never imagined he'd utter. "All forces, retreat. I repeat, all forces, full retreat." As the remnants of the once mighty invasion fleet limped away from Earth, leaving behind the wreckage of their ambitions, Xelfor couldn't help but reflect on the words of Commander Zalvex. They had indeed underestimated the humans, and they had paid a heavy price for that mistake. But as the blue planet receded in his view screen, Xelfor realized that this defeat was more than just a military loss. It was the end of an era. The Zarkonian Empire, long accustomed to easy victories and unchallenged supremacy, had met its match in humanity. And as reports of the Empire's defeats spread across the galaxy, a new era was dawning, one in which humanity, the apex predators of the ultimate Deathworld, would take their place among the stars. A new understanding. The Zarkonian retreat marked a turning point not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. As news of humanity's victory spread across the stars, the balance of power that had held for millennia began to shift. In the Grand Council chamber of the Zarkonian Empire, now a far cry from its former glory, High Admiral Xelfor stood before his peers, his once proud posture now weighed down by defeat. "We underestimated them," he began, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "We saw their planet as a primitive backwater, their species as easy prey. We were wrong." The counselors murmured among themselves, a mix of disbelief and fear in their voices. Xelfor continued, "The humans didn't just repel our invasion. They took our technology, improved upon it, and used it against us with a skill and adaptability we've never encountered before." As he spoke, holographic displays showed footage from the final battles. Human ships outmaneuvering Zarkonian vessels, Earth soldiers in hybrid armor pushing back alien forces across various terrains. "But it's not just their technological prowess we need to fear," Xelfor added. "It's their resilience, their tenacity. They're creatures forged in the crucible of a Deathworld, and it shows in everything they do." At the back of the chamber, Commander Zolvex listened silently, a mix of vindication and sorrow in his eyes. He had tried to warn them, but now the price of their arrogance had been paid in Zarkonian lives. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity was coming to terms with its new reality. The revelation that they were not alone in the universe, coupled with their victory over a technologically superior foe, had ushered in a new era of unity and purpose. In a historic address to the United Nations, now expanded to include representatives from every nation on Earth, Dr. Samantha Chen stood at the podium, her face broadcast to billions around the world. "Today, we stand at a crossroads," she began, her voice steady and clear. "We have defended our home, our Earth, against those who sought to conquer us. But in doing so, we've also taken our first steps into a larger universe." The chamber was silent, every ear tuned to her words. "The Zarkonian technology we've adapted has opened up the stars to us. We have the means to explore, to expand, to take our place among the galactic community. But we must ask ourselves, what kind of interstellar species do we wish to be?" As she spoke, images flashed on screens behind her. The hybrid Earth-Zarkonian ships now in orbit, the advanced defense systems protecting major cities, the terraforming projects already beginning on Mars. We could choose to follow in the footsteps of the Zarkonians, to use our newfound power to conquer and subjugate. But I propose a different path. Let us be explorers, diplomats, peacekeepers. Let us use our unique perspective as inhabitants of a Deathworld not to dominate, but to help and protect. Her words resonated across the globe and beyond. On distant planets, other species watched the broadcast with a mixture of fear and fascination. Humanity, the species that had defeated the mighty Zarkonian Empire, was extending an olive branch to the galaxy. In the following months, Earth underwent a rapid transformation. The hybrid technology was adapted for peaceful purposes, environmental restoration, medical advancements, solving global issues that had plagued humanity for centuries. The first human ambassadors ventured out into the galaxy, making contact with other species. Many were wary at first, having heard of the fate of the Zarkonians. But they soon discovered that humans, for all their strength and resilience, had a capacity for empathy and cooperation that surprised their new galactic neighbors. 1 year after the failed Zarkonian invasion, a historic meeting took place on neutral ground, a space station orbiting a distant star. Representatives from Earth sat across from a delegation from the Zarkonian Empire, including High Admiral Xelfor and Commander Zolvex. The atmosphere was tense, memories of the recent conflict still fresh. But as discussions progressed, a new understanding began to emerge. The humans, led by Dr. Chen, proposed a partnership, a sharing of knowledge and resources that would benefit both species. "We were enemies," Dr. Chen said, addressing Xelfor directly. "But we don't have to remain so. You've seen what we're capable of in war. Now let us show you what we can achieve in peace." Telfor, humbled by defeat but impressed by human magnanimity, found himself nodding in agreement. Perhaps, he mused, this is why you survived your death world, not just through strength, but through cooperation. As the meeting concluded with the signing of a historic peace treaty, Commander Zolvex approached Dr. Chen. I warned them about you, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. But I never imagined this outcome. You humans continue to surprise me. Dr. Chen smiled. That's what we do best, Commander. We adapt, we survive, we thrive. And now we hope to help the galaxy do the same. As news of the treaty spread across the stars, a new age dawned. Humanity, the species from the death world called Earth, had arrived on the galactic stage. They came not as conquerors, but as partners, protectors, and peacekeepers. The galaxy would never be the same again. And as ships bearing the flag of Earth ventured out into the cosmic ocean, one thing became clear to all who watched. The era of human exploration had only just begun.